Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
We have a wonderful guest on the show today, Nicole Frith, passionate about food. Who doesn't love food? And a really clever businesswoman, a new podcast, and lots of things she's working on, a producer. So I'm really looking forward to a conversation with Nicole today. We are streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. We're also on mspnewsglobal.com. We're also streaming through the E360 TV network under Fresh Takes, going out to Apple TV, Fire TV, Android, Roku, and many more. And we're also on Business Innovators Radio Network. I just want to make a shout out to our show sponsors, Dreamweaver, Artist Ranch. Let's bring in our incredible guest, Nicole Frith. Hey, Nicole, how are you?
Hey, Mark. Lovely to talk to you.
I'm really looking forward to a conversation with you today, Nicole. So tell us, where did this love and connection for food all start? Well,
when I was a little child, I spent a lot of time with Mum in the kitchen, and particularly after she was making a batch of biscuits, because there was the very difficult task of licking the bowl afterwards.
As you do.
As we all do. So it started off there, and I spent a lot of time with her baking biscuits and those sorts of types of things. But it wasn't until about the age of 12 when I received a book for a birthday present. And I then proceeded to make every single recipe in the entire book. And one of which was bread. And I just fell in love with making bread. It was just such a beautiful sort of engaging thing, and just a real connection with the food and the kneading. And I just loved that. So from then on, I spent the next every Sunday, actually, every Sunday making bread for the family for the next sort of 3 or 4 years. But that was, I think, really, it was what instilled in me how beautiful it is to make your own produce. And I think that's where it all started.
And actually, I have seen some of your beautiful cooking on Instagram. It's a shame you're in Australia, Nicole, because I would be asking you to send some of that over to me.
Well, there's things that I can send over, so.
Let's do that then. Now, Nicole, you ended up in an international food business. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, well, I ended up, I travelled the world and spent a lot of time overseas and in the UK and Ireland and France, and I ended up working for a French wine company back in Australia for a while. And I was working very closely with some internationally renowned chefs. So that was sort of like my reconnection to food as an adult. But it wasn't until then that I really wanted to actually buy my own business and be engaged in it. So I bought a business back down in Tasmania. I was living in Melbourne at the time, and moved back to Tasmania after my escapades overseas. And my key focus really with that business was I was wanting to support and work with small-scale, local, sustainable producers that were ethical and organic in their practices. I'd been eating personally organically for quite a few years before that, for my own health and well-being, but also for my ethical stance against the damage that commercial and industrialised food production has on the environment. And I really wanted to incorporate that into the ethos of my business. So that's when I ended up back in Tasmania and started working with some really beautiful, inspiring, amazing Tasmanians and Australians that were leading the way with the sustainable food movement. And I think that really made me realise I wanted to do more on a global scale and wanted to change the impact that industrialised food was having on our planet, which I think set me up on my project that I'm working on today.
Amazing. Let's just go back a little bit. We'll go more into what you're doing now in a short while. What was your key focus in your international food business?
Yes, so my key focus was working with those sustainable producers, and I really formed a fantastic connection with them, and they really inspired me to do the work that I'm doing now. So yes, it was through them, through working with these inspirational people. There's actually one of them on my podcast. I've got a podcast that this beautiful man called Tony Shearer, and he's a maverick in the sustainable food industry. He's been working in sustainable food for 60 years. He's this beautiful old Californian hippie, and he moved down to Tasmania quite a while back at the ripe old age of, I think, 50, and I think he's now 80. So he'd spent a lot of time in California working with sustainable food. So back in the 60s, when it was just only starting, and came down here and brought all his knowledge and all his wealth of bits and pieces down to us, and was really such a maverick here in Tasmania. And he grew his own garlic. He brought garlic over from in cell form from the States, and so because he couldn't bring it over in seed form, so he bought it in cells over from the States. And now we've got this beautiful absolutely prolific purple garlic, which actually Tasmania is well renowned for, and that's all to him. So I was working with some very inspirational people, and I think that sort of inspired me to work on the project that I'm working on now.
Excellent. We will talk a lot more about your project. I think let's just talk a little bit about sustainability. What does that mean? What is that related to food? And you mentioned the environment. Let's talk a little bit about the damage that food does to the environment. And let's talk a little bit about what you believe in and what is a better choice.
Yes, well, that's a really fantastic question, Mark. Industrialised food has a very huge impact on the environment in the world. There's lots of pesticides used. There's a lot of wastage used. A huge amount of wastage occurs with the industrialisation of food. In fact, actually, a third of all food produced in the world ends up as waste each year. And a lot of that is to do with the fact that there's big chain supermarkets that are perpetuating this cycle, and they're sort of driving the driving force of and dictating to these farmers basically price and what vegetables and fruit should look like. So if you've got a carrot with two little weird shaped legs, or you've got a tomato with a little nose or something like that. All the beautiful things that organic farmers and producers embrace, that's shunned by the large-scale supermarkets. And so all of that produce just is thrown away and wasted. And, of course, that has a huge impact on the environment. If we if food waste was a country, it would be the third largest producer of greenhouse gases in the world. So, so there's some really sort of very heavy statistics to inspire us to actually support small growers and small producers, and really connect in with our local communities and see what's happening around us. And instead of sort of importing sort of a lot of ingredients from all around the world and the large chain supermarkets supporting them, divert our funds and attention towards those farmers and growers that are doing the right thing and growing more sustainably. And that is that, you know, you can you don't actually have to grow your own. You can just support those industries by buying some local produce and local food. So I think that's, you know, that's a really important factor to realise, that supporting the supporting the sustainable food industry really is supporting the environment as well. And so I think that's really a key point.
I had to smile because before I come on to the interview, Nicole, I was actually saying sustainability a few times because it is difficult to say, and I was thinking I don't want to mess this one up. So I'm glad you did anyway.
Thank you.
I think
a tongue twister.
I think it's great points what you're making. It's so important we look after the environment, but these foods are better for our bodies as well. They are better health-wise, and right. There's no more better time now to be looking after our environment and looking after the planet. So I really admire the work that you're doing. We will come back after a commercial break and we will carry on with the really, really interesting conversation. And thank you everyone for joining us for part one of Brilliance Business TV. We're in conversation with Nicole Frith. We've been talking about sustainability of food, environment. Join us after the commercial break.
Hello, this is Stephen Buckner, and just wanted to tell you I support the Dreamweaver project. It's a great project where, you know, artists such as myself will be able to come together and basically collaborate and to have a retreat to feel accepted and welcome. And that's something that artists here and around the world could always benefit from. So I just want to say, please support the Dreamweaver project. I think it's for a great cause, and I salute all the independent artists out there and artists that are signed as well, and have a wonderful day.
Welcome back to Brilliance Business TV, conversations with leading experts in business. We're in conversation with Nicole Frith. Welcome back, Nicole.
Thanks, Mark.
Tell us about your project and the motivation behind it all, Nicole.
Well, I'm working on a TV series, a podcast series, and musings, which are regular tips and hacks on my website about food sustainability. So all of that encompassed, I'm aiming to inspire people to grow, harvest, and eat more sustainably. I'm really wanting people to reconnect with the process of growing their own food, because I think with that reconnection comes a real appreciation of food from its source.
Yes.
I think we really have lost that connection. A lot of it's just, go to the supermarket, buy our own food, and there's not really a huge amount of value that's placed on it. And we feel like, well, we've bought it and purchased it, and we can throw it away. And there's actually a huge amount of wastage that occurs with that. But when you actually grow your own, and
you appreciate it.
You do, absolutely. And you have that really that connection to it. And everything when I was growing up, my mum and dad used to grow a lot of their own fruit and vegetables, and they actually still do. They're going strong and doing an amazing job.
They taste better as well when you grow them yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Markedly different. I mean, I've grown some heirloom tomatoes this year, and I should actually race down and get the bowl of tomatoes that I've got in my fridge. It's just so spectacular, and they're all different colours. I suggest to anyone, if they haven't grown tomatoes or haven't tasted tomatoes fresh out of the garden, it is just chalk and cheese. They're so beautiful and so delicious. So yes, it does taste better, and it also is more nutritious for you, because industrialized food has bred out the flavour, and it's bred out the taste, and it's bred out the nutrition. So what we're left is with very nutrient lacking, flavourless food from the supermarket. It's just, awful stuff really in comparison to when you grow your own or you go to a farmer's market. And because, we don't all have to grow our own. We can actually, support farmers markets or local people, or even our own neighbours and friends. I do a bit of bartering with my neighbourhood around here, and I have actually 4 lemons in my yard. I love a variety of lemons. I'll talk about that later, and you can go to my website as well. But none are as prolific as my next door neighbour. And so she gives me a whole heap of these beautiful Maya lemons, and we just do a bit of a barter and swap, and likewise with my neighbours across the road. And I'm very envious of my neighbours on the other side. They grow some spectacular vegetables. They have an amazing vegetable crop. And so there's also that community connection as well that happens when you're growing your own food, or when you're sort of engaged in that. So that's also a lovely aspect, and it goes back to that old barter system. It's really a lovely part of growing your own food. So yeah.
Nicole, tell us a little bit about the podcast and the television series. What's it called? What kind of topics are you discussing? Do you have guests on? Get us excited about your new project.
Okay, well, with the podcast, it's called The Sustainable Foodie. It's me. And I'll be interviewing people from all walks of life. One person is Tony Shearer, which I spoke earlier on about. He's just such a legend and maverick on an international level with the sustainable food movement. But I'll also be interviewing people just from all walks of life, small people making a huge impact. And I'll be interviewing some international chefs. So
Nice.
It's just a mixture of people that can really inspire you from what they're doing in their own lives. So there'll be some fantastic recipes and bits and pieces on those podcasts as well when I'm interviewing the chefs, and tips from, you know, the lovely Tony Shearer and you know, some really interesting people that will give us some fantastic inspiration to our own backyards.
It's very lifestyle, like bloggy lifestyle, all about sustainability in food. Sounds really fun to learn all about that, Nicole, and it's much needed as well. And your musing, tell us a little bit about that.
My musings is actually based on my own personal experiences. So what I'm growing in the garden, what is inspiring me at the moment, what I'm cooking out of the produce from my garden. So that's sort of more based around my own personal experiences and what is inspiring me at the time. And it's very similar to a blog, I suppose. So that's where I'll talk about my beautiful heirloom tomatoes, which are just amazing. There's so many different colours and varieties. I mean, who'd have thought, you know, there is actually the colour red in tomatoes. I mean, because I've got green tomatoes that all ripe, by the way, green tomatoes and yellow tomatoes and orange tomatoes, pink tomatoes, purple tomatoes, and they've all got such beautiful flavours. So, yes, I'll talk about that and talk about how you can actually do that. And you can grow tomatoes from cuttings. Who'd have thought? I mean, you can actually get a cutting from a tomato that you like. So that's all on there. Also growing things from seed. I've grown a lot of things from seed, which is just so ridiculously inexpensive and practical. And you don't even have to have a garden. You can just grow some seeds in a pot and put them on the windowsill. I've actually grown this year some beautiful chamomile flowers on my windowsill, and I was actually I should go down there and pick some now to show you. But they are so beautiful, like chamomile. I don't know. I've had lots of chamomile tea from, you know, store-bought chamomile tea, and it really tastes like dust. It's absolutely awful. I was thinking, what is this, you know, trend or obsession with chamomile tea? It just tastes disgusting. It tastes like dust and doesn't really have any, benefits that I've noticed. You know, it's supposed to be very calming and relaxing. And, after I've tasted it from the store, it just doesn't do anything for me. Anyway, just this amazing experience this year of growing these beautiful chamomile flowers that look a little bit like white daisies. I the first time I picked them and I made myself a tea, and it was just so beautiful. The flavour is like sort of this herbaceous green crisp apple. And then also 20 minutes after that, I was, napping on the couch. So that was really interesting. And also too, I think with the store-bought stuff, I don't think people are aware, it has a very short shelf life, the potency of chamomile. So it only lasts about 6 months. So we're generally getting very old stock that is sort of a year old. So not only does it have no flavour, it just doesn't have any potency to it either. It doesn't do anything. So growing these beautiful chamomile flowers and just putting those in tea was such a revelation for me. And it's just like something simple that anyone can do. You don't even have any space. It's just such a lovely way to start.
What tips do you have, just a couple, of people just starting out on their journey in sustainability with food?
Okay. Seeds, and more seeds. I just really love growing things from seed because it's so fulfilling, and it's also so very affordable for everyone. And as I was saying before, with the chamomile flowers, you can actually, you don't even have to have soil. You can grow some herbs on your windowsill, which is such a lovely start. And, also too with herbs, I mean, when we buy a packet from the supermarket or wherever we get them from, there's so much wastage, generally speaking. I know I'm a culprit of doing that. I'll buy some herbs from a store and use a few when I'm doing cooking, but then they'll sit in my fridge and, a couple of weeks later I'll look in there and there's a sad, sorry mess of mushy herbs that I have to throw away. So just even starting with growing your own herbs on your kitchen bench is such a great start, I think. If you do have some land, I grew these huge zucchinis from seed this year, which started off inside. We planted these tiny little seeds that cost me, I don't know, a couple of dollars in Australia. So, and they ended up, I think I got, I don't know, about $200 or $300 worth of zucchini from these couple of little tiny seeds. And it was just so satisfying as well, growing these beautiful, huge. I mean, they do say that it is better to eat zucchinis when they're tiny and small. They're nuttier. But when you grow them yourself, I just didn't notice any difference, to be totally honest. I did try them when they were little, and then I thought, I'll let them get a bit bigger just for fun. And they ended up being about this big, and just the flavour remained. So I made up some beautiful bits and pieces this year, just, the last couple of weeks towards the end of summer with my heirloom tomatoes and zucchini. And the favourite thing for my family at the moment is ratatouille, which is the tomatoes, the herbs from my garden, and these beautiful huge zucchinis. So, yes, it's just such a satisfying thing, and also incredibly cost effective as well. So
yes, and it's fun when you're growing your own. It's like a real achievement, isn't it, when you're watching things grow? Nicole, we are coming to the last couple of minutes of the show. Now, yes. I know you have your podcast on your website and your television show is coming, and also people can sign up to your musing. Tell us quickly a little bit about that.
I just love people to get on Nicole Frith at .com.au and sign up to my musings. It's very easy to do, so you'll just receive those in your inbox, and I'll just be doing that on a regular basis. That's one way to connect with me. Also, you can contact me directly. There's space there to do that as well. If you'd like to have a chat with me and ask me any questions, feel free to do that. And my podcast is available on my website as well. So just go to nicolefrith.com.au and you've got everything there ready and waiting for you to start growing your own bits and pieces, or being inspired to plant some herbs, plant, some zucchini seeds and see how you guys go.
I would encourage everyone, if you've resonated with Nicole, if you're interested in how you can start growing your own food, if you're interested in being more sustainable with food, connect with Nicole, check out her podcast, sign up for her musing, go to nicolefrith.com.au. That's nicolefrith.com.au, nicolefrith.com.au. My last question for you, Nicole, what is your key takeaway?
Right. Yes. What a lovely question. And thank you so much for asking that, Mark. I think food is a part of every single person's life, and the choices we make around what we eat can have a huge impact on the planet, obviously. And I want to encourage, inspire, and educate people so that they can make more informed decisions and eat cleaner, greener, and more sustainably, not only for our own health, but for the health of the planet.
That's a lovely way to close the show, looking after our beautiful planet Earth. Nicole, thank you for being my guest today. I've really enjoyed having a conversation with you.
Likewise, Mark. Loved talking with you. Hopefully we'll do it again sometime.
Oh, definitely. And we're doing some more media with your articles and things as well. Thank you, everyone, for watching Brilliance Business TV, conversations with leading experts in business. Today, we've been in conversation with Nicole Frith, and our conversation has all been around sustainability with food. Until next time, bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.